So, what happens when you merge the gameplay mechanics of turn-based roguelike dungeon crawlers like Chocobo's Mysterious Dungeon and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon with that of a Tamagotchi or a virtual pet's creature racing mechanic, then sprinkle that in with just enough customization options and interesting story? Now, this is not a new game, not by a long shot. I actually live streamed this on Twitch when it first came out on the PlayStation 4, but I have recently gotten the upgraded PlayStation 5 version, and I realized I never actually made a thoughts and impressions / review for this title. So, here we are. What's up, girls and boys? What's up, internet? I am Bianca, and welcome to my thoughts and impressions of Void Terrarium's PlayStation 5 version. For those who haven't heard or never came across this title before, and without plunging into spoiler territory, Void Terrarium puts you in the shoes of the last remaining sentient robot in a dystopian world where mankind has been annihilated, mutated creatures and dangerous robots roam, and where you are tasked with taking care of the last human girl in the world, along with the long-forgotten factory AI. As for how Void Terrarium plays, it does so similarly as Mystery Dungeon games like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon and Chocobo's Dungeon does. You control Robbie, the robot, along different dungeons in search of resources to either build and upgrade with to help Toriko, the last human girl, with her living conditions like searching for food or medicines to name a few, while also uncovering more of what happened to the world. Story-wise, it's not that deep or profound, and there is a bit of levity in the dialogues despite how grim the situation might be. Gameplay-wise, it suffers in the same repetitiveness that others of its genre do. What makes it unique from Mystery Dungeon games, however, lies in taking care of Toriko. As I've mentioned before, this game meshes Mystery Dungeon gameplay mechanics with that of a virtual pet or a Tamagotchi. And that is in the literal sense of it, as you get to take care of all of Toriko's needs, from her food, cleaning her terrarium, and even decorating it to how you see fit, where decorations crafted also provide boosts not just for our little robot protagonist, but to the little girl as well. And really, that's the aspect of the game I had most fun and was pretty obsessive over. I wanted to build the most beautiful terrarium for Toriko while keeping her healthy and full and free from sickness. The PlayStation 5 version of the game, from my perspective, is a much better experience than the PlayStation 4 version, which I was able to play first. I immediately noticed how fluid and fast not just the loading screens were, but the animations themselves. The game seems a lot more balanced now as well, considering I was no longer struggling at the beginning as I did previously when I was playing in the PlayStation 4 release. Granted, I almost had a mini panic attack when I thought the game froze on me while I was creating a save file for the first time. As it turned out, the game just took its sweet time creating the save file. Some of the glitches, though I wonder if that was what it was, that was present in the game before, like the dash suddenly not working whenever you dash through a hallway and to a room, sadly still exist in this iteration. Battles and progression still rely on heavy RNG. At times, you can breeze through floors and dungeons when you roll incredibly decent and useful skills, passive upgrades, and obtain items. Other times, it's the complete opposite, with certain story points progressing so slowly because the dungeons generated were chock full of monsters and traps and very little item drops. Of course, during dungeon runs, you not only have to keep an eye out on items Robbie could use, but also food for Toriko, which can be a lot rare, again, depending on how well you are favored by the RNG gods. As for the aesthetics of the game, it's pretty. Even the dungeons have their own charm to them, and Toriko is simply just adorable. Granted, the enemies don't have much in terms of variations, but for this type of genre, it is to be expected. Music-wise, the game's soundtrack is not at all bad, though I barely paid any mind to it after a while, as each track simply flows onto the next with not a single one capturing my attention. When it comes to the question of the game being fun, well, that boils down to one's own preference. For instance, people who do not enjoy grinding or going back and forth in a particular dungeon in the hopes of obtaining enough resources to progress through the game might find these types of games tedious and, as I've mentioned before, repetitive. Similarly, those who would like to focus more on the aspect of exploration would be annoyed with how you would have to balance taking care of Toriko with that, to the point where there are times you would have to give up on a dungeon run to go back and feed Toriko or clean her terrarium, lest she ends up getting sick and you would have to go through the motions of gathering resources and crafting her medicine. Personally, I enjoy having to balance these things, although I did find the whole resource conversion thing annoying, especially when you have to farm them constantly, and you will need to farm them a lot for when you're building up Toriko's terrarium to when you're upgrading Robbie and unlocking other things to help strengthen him and make journeying through the underground much more easier, relatively speaking. Void Terrarium isn't perfect by any means, and it has issues, but overall I had equal parts enjoyment and frustration in this game. I enjoy the customization part of the terrarium and the care system placed on Toriko, as well as the dialogue, one-sided as it is, that occurs between Robbie and Factory AI. The frustration that I felt is with the clunky controls and how you don't really feel Robbie growing stronger despite crafting all the items you possibly could. Frustration from having to repeatedly go down a dungeon because the RNG rolled in favor of the enemies and traps that are far too difficult for a starting floor. Or the fact that I had just gotten a blueprint, but then an enemy steals it or kills Robbie before I could teleport him back to the scrapyard. That being said, if you guys are interested in venturing around the underground world that has been overrun and contaminated by toxic fungi while taking care of cute little Toriko, then you can check out Void Terrarium, not just on the PlayStation consoles, but on the Nintendo Switch as well. And that about does it for today's video. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, you guys know the drill. Dream on, fly on. Bye bye for now. Keep safe, everyone.
Someday we'll have our last conversation, drink our last cup of coffee. Someday we might be 80 and think about the difference.